Now, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, great friend, one of the best of the best. Byron, you got your crime bill passed last night in the House. That's a very big thing. You want to give us a bullet or two on that one?
Well, in D.C., before we passed this bill out of the House last night, if you were over the age of 18 and under the age of 25, you could still be tried as a juvenile and receive a juvenile sentence. So what we did is we took that back from the D.C. City Council. We made it similar to where it is all across the United States, that we treat children as juveniles, we treat adults as adults in the criminal justice system. And some of the data we've seen out of Washington is that it is young crime, not just juvenile crime, but youthful offenders, people between the ages of 18 and 25, where a lot of the robberies, carjackings, etc., have occurred. So it's putting stiffer penalties back into the criminal justice system here in the nation's capital.
Well, I think good on you for that. Jeanine Pirro, our great friend, and she's now the U.S. Attorney, she was very strongly in favor of this, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. You know, Judge Jeanine does not play games, and I think that the District of Columbia is very glad that she's on the job. And look, at the end of the day, we're going to do what's necessary to make sure the nation's capital is safe. The D.C. City Council and the mayor have failed in that regard. President Trump has been clear. He wants a safe nation's capital for everybody, and Congress has a constitutional responsibility to step up and make sure that we meet the challenge, and we did that in part last night here on the House floor.
And Byron, you know, the president, I guess they went into Memphis, or they're talking about Memphis. The point is, his law and order campaign, whatever cities are necessary, his law and order campaign, making use of the authorities, National Guard, whatever, I think the public has grasped onto it. I think the public likes it very much, even the people in Washington, D.C., but beyond Washington. When you get out into the hinterland, all right, you're talking about the Midwest, or you're talking about the South. I think people are no different. They want to be safe, Byron Donalds. There's no difference where they live. They want to be safe.
100%. And credit to Governor Bill Lee for working with President Trump to make sure that you could deploy National Guard troops in the city of Memphis. And what actually happens is the National Guard is on the ground as a deterrent. It gives local law enforcement more capability to go out there and make sure that they're arresting criminals, getting them off the street. Here in D.C., it's been the same thing. There are short officers in the Metro Police Department. Having the National Guard on the ground has given them more flexibility to make sure they're holding criminals accountable.
Byron, can I just switch gears the last couple of minutes here? We had a Federal Reserve meeting today. You know, Trump's guy, Steve Myron, dissented. First time in history that a newcomer dissented. I think he's right. Doesn't Mr. Trump, any president, you and I might not like it, but any president have the right for a central bank that is conforming and consistent with their own policies? You got a Fed here that's fighting the president of the United States elected by the voters. And that strikes me as very wrong.
Well, let's be clear. I think what President Trump's been advocating for is that the Federal Reserve get in the game with the rest of the economy and cut interest rates. Glad they finally did 25 basis points, but they probably should have done 50. They probably could have done 75 basis points if we're going to be honest. But 50 points would have been the real cut that should have happened here. I think the real issue we're having with the Federal Reserve is that they are so ensconced and removed from everything. They get caught up in their charts and their data points, but they're not being focused on what's happening with purchasing power across the United States and how that impacts the lives of people. And so I think that the Reserve, I'm on the record, the Reserve's mandate should be revised to just price stability. I firmly believe that. And if that's the case, it would actually fall in line, obviously, with President Trump, but with a lot of presidential administrations. It's about making sure that the American people truly are getting the bang for their buck.
Yeah, I mean, look, housing is still in the tank. Housing numbers came out today, Byron. You know, that's a big thing. That's an affordability. That's a young people's affordability. They'd like to afford a new home. Mortgage rates have come down, but not that much. You know, I think we need help from growth. We need help from take-home pay, but I think we need help from interest rates. I think young folks would like that very much. Last 10 seconds.
I agree with you on that. I also think the president's entire agenda is going to help with economic growth. You and I agree on that, Larry.
Yeah.
Last piece I would say, we got to reform the regulatory environment around procuring raw materials for building. We got to get the costs out of there. Let's get those regulations down. Let's make it cheaper to build for people in the United States.
All right, I'm on it. I'm on it. The best of the best. Congressman Byron Donalds, great state of Florida. Thank you, sir.